Inter have won their 20th Scudetto, Breton. How are you feeling, mate?
I'm feeling happy for all Interistas out there for how, I guess, great of an amazing season it has been. I know the Champions League exit is tough, but my goodness, this second half of the season for Inter Milan made it look a whole lot harder. Or I'm sorry, a whole lot easier, I should say, not harder, a whole lot easier than it actually was. I think it was back in January or back in February that the point difference between Inter and Juventus was only 1 point. And then Inter just kept moving. So Simone Inzaghi adds a Scudetto title as a coach to a Scudetto title as a player, and you got to be happier. And you got to be happy for everybody involved. But yeah, it was anything but easy, right? Anything but easy this season.
I think Inter made it look easy because, yes, no doubt in my mind, the best collective playing football in Serie A this season is Inter. And they totally deserve the Scudetto. And by winning this Scudetto, Inter, that they won against their rivals, okay, AC Milan 2-1, they get the bragging rights of earning their second star above their crest. And what is this second star, people? Each star equates to 10 Serie A titles. So Inter, with their 20th Scudetto, now they have 2 stars, symbolizing that they're the second team with the most titles in Serie A history. Because what's the other team that has the other star? Is Juventus. Juventus is still leading the race. And this is something I got to respect on Serie A. Bundesliga, a lot of people said there was a farmers league until this season where Leverkusen won. Serie A, until 2020, people forget, from 2013 to 2020 in Serie A, Juventus won 8 titles. Then in 2021, Inter won. 2022, AC Milan won. 2023, Napoli won. And then Inter have won again in 2024. So in the last 5 seasons, that is 4 different winners. And that makes Serie A much more interesting than it was those 10 previous years, in my point of view, Breton.
Absolutely. And I guess we have to, I don't mean to, douse this with cold water, Alex, but Stefano Pioli and AC Milan winning in 2022, we know he, just 2 seasons later, is likely stepping down as AC Milan coach. And Luciano Spalletti left after Napoli, and we all saw what happened to Napoli this season. So that's going to be really interesting to see how Simone Inzaghi, how Inter go from here, what they do from here. I mean, some of the biggest successes that we've seen this season were the amazing center-back trio of which Benjamin Pavard in recently. What a wonderful signing that has been for them. Acerbi, I know you love that man. Alessandro Bastoni, simultaneously one of the most underrated and also one of the most accepted best young center backs in the world right now. That center back trio.
I say Bastoni's a top 5 center back in the world right now in form.
I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you. Yeah, in form, absolutely.
The crosses are like a fullback, honestly. If you see him play, he's a constant threat. And you said Bastoni, Acerbi, Pavard. Pavard costs 30 million. Acerbi costs 4 million. Sommer costs 6.5 million. That is less than 50 million spent in the 3 center backs and the goalkeeper, and they're one of the best in the world. Masterclass once again. And Simone Inzaghi, it's the style of play, and it's so good to see him winning his first Scudetto as a manager. And the record now of Simone Inzaghi is 9 trophies in his last 8 seasons. It's 5 Supercoppa d'Italias. It's 3 Coppa d'Italias. And it's now finally the Serie A 1, with Acerbi coming from Lazio to Inter with him. It's just a great story, mate.
Yeah.
And beating cancer too.
Very true. Oh my! Well, he's got it all. He's an absolute warrior, right? But yeah, you've got DeMarco on the flanks. You've turned Matteo Darmian into a very good player in this particular system, and then you've got a midfield that we can all get behind. I think this is before we even talk about the attack, and obviously the most shrewd and best player, best signing of the Serie A season. But before I get there, Alex, I mean, I simply have to say the only negative only negative I'm going to throw out here, and yes, this is tongue-in-cheek, okay? This is a joke. I got to admit this is a joke before it even gets there. Not a very good one. Is that from an FC Wonder Kid perspective, why are we using all senior citizens to win this thing? Why do we got to watch a 20? No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean, right? We're pushing 30 in this lineup, but hey, you can't argue with the actual the devil in the details, and that is one Serie A loss so far this season.
And
that is, I think
points
it's what
ahead of Milan, the second place.
I know, it's insane. One loss in 32 games and only 18 goals conceded. That's why I started with the defense first. As good as Lautaro has been, as good as this Marcus Thuram has been, that guy that was picked up for peanuts, literally a bag of peanuts, right? And turned into one of the best players in Serie A, has come through time and time again for Inter this season. But in the end, I think the primary thing, as you mentioned, as we started with, it was defense that won this title. I'm not saying it's a hearkening back to Catenaccio in and of itself, but it is very dang close to that. And that trio, I think, deserves all the love when it comes to this, including Inzaghi's ability to put this team together, because the contrast between Antonio Conte's Inter winning side back in the day and this one is the shrewdness in the transfer market, is the maybe analytical nature of finding the right pieces to fit the system instead of throwing all sorts of money at really good players, Lukaku at the time, right? And it was Hakimi, Christian Eriksen at the time, right? Back in those days. But instead, the heroes of this were that aforementioned trio. It was Nicolo Barella. It was Hakan Calhanoglu, who was also brought in on a free several years ago. It was Marcus Thuram. Finally, I'm going to say his name. And that in and of itself made me an Interista for the year, even though, I've got Americans on the AC Milan squad. I would have liked to see them hang in there further. But Inter, man, what a day to clinch the Scudetto win, to basically also clinch your bitter rival's managerial exit of Stefano Pioli. And on top of that, to now take the lead in most Scudetto wins over AC Milan, behind Juve. They're all chasing Juve right now. So I'm with you. Just a stellar squad altogether. I think the only negative for the season, this season for Inter, has just been that bitter, sweet, I wouldn't say sweet, this bitter exit from the Champions League, because I said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, while they couldn't get past Atleti, they had a squad. They have a squad that is good enough to win the Champions League this season. Inter Milan does.
That's why they went to a final the previous year. And I agree with what you're saying. True. You mentioned Marcus Thuram first, and I think it's a fact. Marcus Thuram for free from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Marcus Thuram signing for free for Inter is one of the best signings this season, no doubt in my mind. I think Grimaldo's 100%. The only one I put ahead that I can think fast, okay? Or a Viktor Gyökeres. But they paid 20 million for that player. But Thuram, 43 games, 14 goals, 12 assists. You got to respect the impact he has. And Marcus Thuram, for me, starts for France. And you mentioned Calhanoglu. Okay. Calhanoglu goes from AC Milan to Inter. And Calhanoglu is the big impact in midfield next to Barella, of course. Calhanoglu has a record of 331 games in Serie A, 43 goals, and 56 assists. This is a Serie A legend in the making, okay? Totally. And by beating AC Milan and winning the Scudetto, Inter, that was their 6th consecutive win against the Rossoneri. 6th. It's the first time ever that has happened. So Pioli has to leave, and AC Milan need to react to this dominance of Inter this season, okay? Totally, in my point of view. And the player that I think deserves a special mention here at the end is Nicolo Barella, an Inter legend, 100% a top 10 midfielder in the world of football right now. If you disagree, you don't know ball and you don't watch Inter in Serie A. This midfielder has 3 Supercoppas, 2 Coppa d'Italias. He's won the Euros in 2020, 2021. 5 times he's been in the team of the year of the Serie A, and he's won 2 Scudettos now. Like, he's the difference. You can totally see it.
Yeah.
And the record is 238 games for Barella, 22 goals, 51 assists. It's incredible.
He's a bit like the silent assassin. Like the game goes well if you're not mentioning his name that often, Nicolo Barella, right? He's not there for the plaudits. He does what he does, and he does it on a really good, consistent basis, because depending on who you ask, you might even have some people like you're mentioning you're taking ball knowledge into account here. But if depending on who you ask, some people actually do believe that he has had a underperforming type of season. Yep. Now, we are not in that camp, but that is the type of, it's whether or not you're watching the games or you're not watching the games, right? But I do need to go back to just Marcus Thuram very quickly, because I loved the interview, and we got to give credit. CBS Sports, Paramount Plus, their coverage over here in the States of Serie A has been nothing but like phenomenal. Just to watch them kind of give light to a, let's be honest, to a league that needs light, right? That needs parity, as you mentioned. That needs more personality, at least as it's presented as a product to the rest of the world. But Marcus Thuram is everything of that. You think he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth because, Lilian Thuram is his dad. But ultimately, he's had to fight to get here. Gladbach to Inter is not exactly an avenue one would expect to take. Now, we know that his dad probably did play a part, potentially, in getting there. But isn't it funny that he winds up stepping up his game so ridiculously? Because you mentioned 14 goals, you mentioned 12 assists, right? The biggest statistic that Marcus Thuram has provided Inter this season, his first year in Italy, his first title, period, in his entire professional career. His biggest statistic is that he scored 9 goals and he registered 3 assists against the 8 teams directly below Inter in the table. He also, you can add 2 more goals on top of that, because he forced, if I remember correctly, I think he forced 2 own goals against AS Roma and against Juve that led to big wins in those particular scenarios. So the fact that it's his first season, the fact that he arguably had better chemistry with Lautaro Martinez than Romelu Lukaku did, it is really impressive to me how a man has been able to do that. And that, I think, is a testament to maybe the ship, too, that Simone Inzaghi runs there, right? And the fact that this is a tight-knit squad, and there is no particular person that leads this Inter squad per se. It is a squad, and that wins. So
I agree,
had to say it.
But I disagree kindly a bit, though, too, Bretzen, because you mentioned Thuram, but Thuram's not the best striker in the team. It's Lautaro Martinez, the capitano of Inter de Milan, the deserving captain, because this man has 128 goals, 42 assists for Inter de Milan, okay? And Lautaro Martinez now, 2 Scudettos, 3 Italian Cups, 3 Super Cups, and the duo of Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram equates to 35 goals and 14 assists this season in Serie A. That's why they win it, and that's why they'll be a threat towards winning the Champions League next season once again. Inter de Milan, I don't see Simone Inzaghi leaving. I don't see Lautaro leaving. I don't see Barella leaving. I only see Bastoni leaving for 100 million, honestly, because that's the bargaining that Inter have. They will not let him go easily. And then a Di Marco, irreplaceable boyhood club too. So this is why Inter are constantly on the top now. And we already have confirmations from Fabrizio. If this is wrong, I blame you, Fabrizio, okay? Zielinski and Taremi are going to come to Inter next season, next summer. Wow. 2 amazing free transfers once again, as we always see. Now Thuram, Sanyanoglu, now these 2. And there's talks for Nacho Fernandez. Talk about a squad player going to this Inter team. Nacho Fernandez is exactly that. Getting even older, yes.
Getting older.
It's true, but Isaac will learn. Isaac will learn.
Yeah. And the wild card, I think, and you kind of alluded to this without saying his name, but the wild card is the ownership of Inter, this season. I know in the past they broke down Antonio Conte's team essentially due to a relatively large hole in their finances. And whether or not that happens again, I mean, it seems like it's not going to, but if it is not going to, you're absolutely right that this squad is something that can actually be built upon, and maybe made younger while simultaneously being made more veteran caliber and more deep. And that in and of itself, I'm not saying it's going to lead to a Juve-like dynasty, but I think there's certainly seeds there that can be grown, can be planted, not to run that cliche into the ground. But you know what I mean. And it is going to be really something. Yeah, and I want to know what people think about Inter's offseason.
I mean,
beyond
Taremi. If the people that are listening to this video think any player is going to leave Inter, put down below in the comment section.
Please.
Because Onana leaves, Sommer is signed, and that is 45 million profit. That's knowing how to do business. So people, if you enjoyed this video, put down below other topics that you'd like to see. And please like this video so we know that you enjoyed another bold video, especially on Inter.